Most people think aging is the reason their body starts failing after 60. It's not. It's these 10 diseases, and almost all of them are preventable if you catch the warning signs early enough. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to watch for and what to do about it, starting today. Stick around because disease number 3 is the one most doctors don't warn you about until it's too late. I'm Dr. Michael Carter, and for years I've studied what actually separates people who stay sharp, mobile, and independent well into their 90s and hundreds from those who don't. It's rarely genetics. It's almost always about catching these 5 conditions early. Let's get into it. Number 1, cardiovascular disease. This is still the leading cause of death after 60, and the frustrating part is that it develops silently for years before any symptom shows up. By the time you feel chest pain or shortness of breath, arteries are often already significantly narrowed. The warning signs to watch for: fatigue during light activity, swelling in the ankles, and a resting heart rate that's creeping upward year over year. What actually moves the needle: blood pressure under control, LDL cholesterol managed, and this is the one people skip: a simple daily habit of 30 minutes of movement that raises your heart rate. Walking counts. You don't need a gym membership to protect your heart. Number 2, type 2 diabetes. After 60, insulin sensitivity naturally declines, which means the same diet that worked fine at 40 can quietly push blood sugar into dangerous territory. The scary part is how many people walk around with pre-diabetes for years without knowing it. Watch for increased thirst, unexplained fatigue after meals, and slow-healing cuts. The single most protective habit here isn't cutting out sugar entirely. It's protecting muscle mass. Muscle is what pulls glucose out of your bloodstream. That means resistance training, even light versions with resistance bands, 2 to 3 times a week. Number 3, and this is the one most doctors don't bring up until after a fracture happens: osteoporosis. Bone density loss is silent. There's no pain, no symptom, until a fall leads to a hip fracture, and that single event is linked to a sharp drop in life expectancy for people over 60. Here's what's not talked about enough. It's not just about calcium. Vitamin D and weight-bearing exercise matter just as much, if not more. If you haven't had a bone density scan after 60, that's step 1. Step 2 is adding weight-bearing movement, even bodyweight squats, into your weekly routine. Number 4, cognitive decline, including dementia and Alzheimer's. The research over the last decade has shifted a lot here. We now know cardiovascular health and brain health are deeply connected. What's good for your heart is good for your brain. Early signs people dismiss as normal aging: misplacing items more often, struggling to follow conversations in noisy rooms, and difficulty finding the right word. The most protective habits: quality sleep, staying socially engaged. Isolation is a bigger risk factor than most people realize, and continuing to learn new, mentally demanding skills, not crossword puzzles, genuinely new skills like learning an instrument or a language. Number 5, chronic kidney disease. This one flies under the radar because kidneys can lose up to 50% of their function before you notice any symptoms. Risk factors accelerate after 60: high blood pressure, diabetes, and long-term use of certain over-the-counter painkillers. Watch for swelling in the legs, changes in urination, and persistent fatigue. The protective habit here is simple but overlooked: staying properly hydrated, managing blood pressure, and getting kidney function checked as part of routine blood work after 60, not just when something feels wrong. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Robert, because his story is the perfect example of why disease number 1 on this list matters so much. Robert was 63, active, no chest pain, no warning signs he'd ever noticed. He played tennis twice a week and felt, in his words, better than he had in years. One morning, he felt an unusual tightness in his chest during his tennis match. Not painful, just off. Most people would have shrugged it off. Robert didn't. He'd seen the warning signs we just covered, and he knew that off was enough reason to get checked. That single decision saved his life. Tests revealed one of his coronary arteries was over 90% blocked, a blockage that had been building silently for years with zero symptoms until that moment on the court. Doctors told him that if he'd waited even a few more weeks, he likely would have suffered a major heart attack. Robert had a stent placed, changed his diet, kept up his movement, and 3 years later, he's not just alive, he's thriving. He tells everyone who'll listen. The difference between survival and tragedy wasn't luck. It was paying attention to a signal most people would have ignored. That's the entire point of this video. These diseases don't announce themselves loudly, they whisper, and the people who make it to 100 are the ones who learn to listen. Number 6. Sarcopenia, the medical term for age-related muscle loss, and it's one of the most underestimated threats to independence after 60. Starting around age 50, most people lose around 1% of muscle mass per year if they do nothing about it. By 70, that adds up fast, and it's directly linked to falls, fractures, and loss of mobility. The warning signs: struggling to get up from a low chair without using your arms, a weakening grip strength, or noticing your legs tire faster on stairs than they used to. The fix isn't complicated, but it does require consistency, protein intake spread across the day, and resistance training at least twice a week. Muscle responds to stress at any age. It's never too late to rebuild it. Number 7. Chronic respiratory disease, including COPD. This one often gets written off as just getting a little more winded these days. But a slow decline in lung capacity after 60 is frequently the early stage of a condition that becomes seriously limiting within a decade. Watch for shortness of breath during activities that used to be easy, a persistent cough, or needing more recovery time after climbing stairs. Protective habits: avoiding smoke exposure entirely, getting annual flu and pneumonia vaccinations, and this surprises people, cardio exercise. Keeping your lungs working under mild stress is what preserves their capacity over time. Number 8. Colorectal cancer. This is one of the most preventable cancers when caught early, yet it's still one of the leading cancer-related causes of death after 60, largely because screening gets delayed or skipped entirely. Warning signs: changes in bowel habits that last more than a few weeks, unexplained weight loss, or blood in the stool, something people often dismiss instead of getting checked. The single most protective action here is simple: routine colonoscopy screening starting at 45 to 50 and not skipping it just because you feel fine. This is a disease where early detection is close to a guarantee of full recovery. Number 9. Vision loss, particularly age-related macular degeneration and glaucoma. Here's what makes this one dangerous. Glaucoma in particular has almost no early symptoms. By the time peripheral vision loss becomes noticeable, a significant amount of optic nerve damage has often already occurred. Watch for difficulty adjusting to dim lighting, needing brighter light to read, and subtly misjudging distances or bumping into things on one side more than the other. The protective habit most people skip: a dilated eye exam every 1 to 2 years after 60, not just a basic vision test. Early treatment can preserve vision that, once lost, doesn't come back. Number 10. Immune system decline, sometimes called immunosenescence. After 60, the immune system's ability to respond quickly to new infections weakens, which is why illnesses that used to be minor, like the flu or pneumonia, become genuinely dangerous. Warning signs: infections that take noticeably longer to resolve, getting sick more frequently than in previous years, and slower wound healing. The protective habits here: staying current on recommended vaccinations, prioritizing sleep, which is when immune repair happens, and maintaining gut health through fiber-rich foods, since a large percentage of immune function is tied directly to gut bacteria. Now, if you noticed a pattern across all 10 of these, you're right. The same handful of habits show up over and over as protective factors. So let's make it simple. First, movement. Not intense workouts, just consistent movement, mixing cardio and resistance training most days of the week. This alone reduces risk across cardiovascular disease, diabetes, sarcopenia, and even cognitive decline. Second, sleep. 7 to 8 hours isn't a luxury after 60. It's when your body repairs tissue, consolidates memory, and resets your immune system. Poor sleep is quietly linked to nearly every disease on this list. Third, routine screening. Most of these conditions are only dangerous because they're caught late. Blood pressure checks, blood work, bone density scans, eye exams, colonoscopies, none of them are exciting, but they're the difference between catching something at stage 1 versus stage 4. So to recap: cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, cognitive decline, and chronic kidney disease. The pattern across all 5 is the same. They're silent until they're not, which means the people who make it to 100 in good health aren't lucky. They just caught these early. If this helped you, subscribe. I break down one preventable health risk like this every week. And let me know in the comments, which of these 5 surprised you the most? I'll see you in the next one.